Welcome to the Gynarchy Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Kirti Patel. Here we place women's health and feminism front and center where they belong, engaging in conversations that range from the fundamental to the fearless. With insights from expert guests, we aim to break through the barriers of the patriarchy and envision a new world led by the Gynarchy. So let's get started and dive right in. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Gynarchy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirti Patel. And today we're going to be talking about feminism. What is feminism? To some of you, it may be obvious, but I don't know. I've seen a lot of dumb things said on social media, and that's why I kind of felt like we needed a feminism for dummies or a feminism 101 chat. So my guest today is my friend, Malia Funk, who has a finance background, and she's now working in private equity, investing in cool businesses and people. We actually worked on a women's health startup in the past called the POV, which she founded. And she's also really killing it on her social media, talking often about women's health and sharing lessons about how to navigate a career in a male-dominated industry like finance. So welcome, Malia. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm good. I just have to say, you look like such a podcaster. And I just remember the first podcast we did together and how nervous you were and unsure, and just look how far you've come. It's unbelievable.
I'm wearing a festive shirt.
I love that. Where do I get that shirt?
It's from Reductress. Do you know that?
Reductress, yes.
All right. So I thought before we get started that we'd do our champagne. I know you're ready for this. I got rosé.
Mine is rosé too, and I only picked it because of the box, because this
is nice.
Is so cute.
I love it. I haven't seen that. What is it called? What brand is that?
Pommery. Probably pronounced like not Pommery because it's French, but Pommery.
Yes, I also am bad with pronouncing. I never took French. I took Spanish, but I guess this is Veuve.
It's the Veuve Clicquot, yeah.
Somebody will correct me, I'm sure.
Yes. Always, whenever I see it, I'm like, oh, it's the Veuve.
All right, here goes. This might be painful to watch. We might have to cut this, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I hope I don't break anything around here.
Yes.
Okay, this is happening.
This part has to come off. Okay.
Okay.
The bottle's cute too over here.
Yeah. Oh, let me see. The label is cute. Oh, okay. Mine is nice.
I already took off the shiny part, but.
All right. Okay, here goes. I'm going to pop mine.
I heard you're supposed to twist the bottle, not the.
Holy shit. I'm fucking soaking wet. Well, I guess I'm doing this podcast.
I can't even get mine open.
I swear
it's been sitting.
You gotta just slowly eke it open. But wow, I have created a disaster here.
When they're editing this, they're gonna be like,
what the fuck, these amateurs. Okay, so thank you so much for your patience. Okay, I'm cleaned up here.
Of course.
I'm ready to toast. So I have a little motto for this motto that Sammy helped me, that Sammy actually came up with. But
tell me.
Down with the patriarchy and up with the Gynarchy. Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
Good.
Rosé all day.
Yes. All right. So I guess I wanted to start with talking about, as you know, I got a little Twitter viral because, I kind of angered some male influencers like Andrew Tate. And more recently, I guess I've drawn the ire of Myron Gaines. And some of their followers are just so rabid and they just love to use feminists like a slur. They see feminists on my profile and they're like, oh, figures like You must be single. You probably can't find a man. How many cats do you have?
Mhm. Oh,
And
I'm familiar.
I know, I was going to ask you. So, I thought this is a great place to start. Like, what people use the F word like in such a derogatory way, but I'm so proud of it. So, I guess I wanted to ask you what other things people associate with the word feminist in a negative way. I'm sure you've been attacked on your socials.
You know, am constantly being attacked on my socials. I would say the most common attacks that I receive are that I'll never find a man, that I'm lonely, like you mentioned, that I'm so ugly that I'll never find a man.
Oh, yes. I mean,
And
don't get
then
me started with the
and then
nose
also,
comments.
yeah, then I remember the nose comments. And then but then they'll also come at me with like, you're a whore, you're a slut. And I'm like, so which is it? I can't get a man or I'm sleeping with too many men? Just wondering. Just
Right.
wondering.
Right. The body counts,
The
like,
body
oh,
counts.
it just ran through,
Mhm.
which they
But
just make me laugh.
that stuff doesn't bother me as much because I'm like, whatever, you're an idiot, and that doesn't faze me. When I see stuff more about women were designed to be in their feminine and they should defer to a man because that's just biology and that's nature, like for them to be more feminine, you're acting so masculine, like that's why you won't attract a man. This whole language and that whole conversation is where I think things get a little more sticky and confusing.
Yes. I mean, I feel like there is this agenda by some of these maybe conservatives, men and women, to be fair, but it seems like mostly men, conservative men, to kind of paint the picture of, feminists or women being independent as a really ugly, sad thing. And it seems like it's like, done on purpose to kind of draw young people away from feminism. And that, leads me to the other thing I wanted to bring up is just this all this content on social media that is kind of anti-feminist, and it's mostly done by women, it seems like, and there's certain themes like you were talking about, that come out.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line between content that I see women making about dating advice and women who choose to live a more traditional lifestyle, who want a more traditional relationship. That's all fine and dandy, right? Like, that's not anti-feminist. People get to choose how they want to live and what kind of relationship they want to have. But it's a fine line between that and truly anti-feminist propaganda, essentially painting women who
Yes.
don't choose that as ugly or undesirable or problematic for society.
Right. Oh yeah, misandry. Like they accuse me of being a misandrist. I'm like, I'm not a misandrist. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. Like, I personally don't think misandry is real. It's just hurting men's feelings by telling them they're annoying. But misogyny, I mean, that actually kills women. So I don't think,
Yes.
misandry is uh, okay, I just annoy you, so you want to call me a misandrist. Like, it's not hurting your life. I don't control anything, and I don't go around stalking you or giving you threats to murder or rape you.
Right. Like, women will complain about men not doing the dishes, and men will be like, this is misandry. And we're like, this is not the same as the fact that women are in fear for their lives when they reject men. Like, this is not the same thing.
It's very different. Okay, so I thought we should start with
Okay.
the definition of feminism, right?
Yes.
Because this is Feminism 101, Feminism for Dummies. I have a simple definition that I kind of just live by. What's yours? Do you have something you go with? Because I think
Yes.
people phrase it differently.
People phrase it differently, and I love to see the way different women will phrase feminism. And I think all of it is valid as long as, it's intersectional and there's some basic parameters, but we all experience feminism so differently. And so for me, it has been mostly about questioning the stories we've been told about what a woman should be and also what a man should be, but specifically questioning what we've been told a woman needs to be in order to be a successful member of society. That is what feminism has been for me.
I completely embrace that. I agree, because I feel like every day that's something I like to kind of fight, this like notion that you have to be a certain way to be a feminist, or to be, I'm sorry, a woman.
Yeah.
So my definition of feminism is the belief that women are human beings that deserve equal rights to men, So how can you disagree with that? We're sentient beings like men. We should have rights. We're not properties of men. We shouldn't be controlled by other human beings. We should live in freedom.
Yes.
And we should work towards, equal rights and opportunities like men have,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a big ask, but
it's not.
It seems like a big ask. And people, if you move 3 steps forward, they're pushing you back, and you're not even at the 50% line.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yeah, some of the mythology, the myths about what feminist is, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about next. Like, there was a TikTok that went around with a young woman. I mean, she looked like she was maybe in her 20s, who was, and I kind of did a TikTok in response, but she was kind of saying, I like pretty dresses. I'm not a feminist. I like makeup. I am not, I'm not a feminist. I like cooking. I can cook. Yes. So that really bothered me, because I'm like, I like all those things.
Yes.
And I'm still a feminist. Maybe I'm a bad feminist, because I know there's feminists who think makeup is wrong or kind of trying to please the male gaze, but I don't see it that way. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting topic because and you're such a great person to talk about it, because to me, you are so glam. Every time I see you, you're done up, your hair looks great, your makeup looks great. And I don't associate that with not being feminist, because it's a form of self-expression. Whether or not it's for the male gaze, that's for you to decide, right? I think that video, I see a lot of videos like that, like, sorry, feminists, like, I like to wear sundresses and do makeup and hair. And I'm like, no, feminism is about the fact that you get to have your own credit card so that you can go buy those dresses.
Yeah.
It's not about whether or not you can wear dresses.
I know. And, I really struggled with my feminism, because I love this stuff, love makeup and clothes and getting my hair done, so getting my nails done. And
Yes.
I did question myself, like, who am I? I'm a feminist. I say I'm a feminist, but I like these things. Am I not a good feminist? And it was really powerful to read books like Bad Feminists by Roxane Gay, and also We Should All Be Feminists by
Chimamanda Ngozi
Adichie.
Adichie.
Yes, thank you. Because they kind of touch upon this, and it made me realize, like, my cultural background, Indian American heritage, and I grew up in Jersey. I often say my style comes from growing up in Jersey, like strong beauty cultures. I just love color. I like dressing up, makeup, jewelry, all the things. It's just fun and festive for me, and it's like you said, creative expression.
Yeah. And okay, on the flip side, which I think is interesting, is when I moved from Hawaii, which is where I grew up, part of the culture in Hawaii, but also just maybe this is my personality as well, not specific to Hawaii, is I'm not a makeup, hair, nails, fashion girl, right? Like,
you're a natural beauty.
I don't do those things. Not because I don't like the way it looks. Like, I could go out and get my hair done sometimes, but it's not my favorite thing. And I feel more confident without makeup and without my hair done. I like to do skincare and things like that. I like to go in the ocean. And when I got to Ohio State, which was my first time living outside of Hawaii, I was for the first time, really faced with the norm being curled hair, foundation, makeup, trendy, cute, feminine outfits. And I kind of had this reckoning of like, well, I always thought that I was kind of like a cute feminine girl. And I am.
You are.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a monster next to these girls who are
No.
so done up and pretty in a way that I'm not. And so I went on sort of a little journey to be like, what does it mean for me to be feminine and for me to express myself in the way that I dress and I choose to wear my hair and wear my face? And it's totally okay that other girls have chosen a different way, and there's no wrong way to be a woman.
Yes.
But we're constantly told there is a wrong way to be a woman.
I think that you hit the nail upon the head in saying that for me, it was like a coming to a realization like, who am I? And I must recognize this person and be this person. It doesn't matter what society says, what other people think, how people judge me. I must express myself the way I want to express myself. And you must do that too. You're a beach girly, you're a natural beach girly.
Yeah,
and,
that wasn't me.
Yeah. So, and I think we have different times when we like to be different, have different looks. And you just, this is the other thing. Like I think that's what I want, like young people to know. You can be whoever you are and be a feminist. Do not reject feminism because you feel like you're not fitting into the feminist stereotype. The stereotype is created by people who are trying to draw you away from feminism and disempower you, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I hope that young girl who made that TikTok, eventually learns, maybe through life experience, that, she was maybe a bit off about rejecting feminism. You can be feminine and feminist. You can be masculine and feminist. I actually want to ask you, what brought you to calling yourself a feminist? Have you just always grown up a feminist? Was your family just really feminist? Or did something radicalize you?
Yes, I did grow up in what I would call a feminist family. I wouldn't call them radical, but I would say very modern in their views. So I already had that foundation. But I specifically remember not feeling radicalized or really claiming the word feminist until I was in college and studying finance, a predominantly male industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first time I sort of realized that when I was going out to look for jobs, for networking, for taking classes, that there was a default person that the industry was looking for, and it was not me.
Yes. I mean, I certainly know that in medicine too.
You certainly know that in medicine. And I just I have these distinct memories of, I had a boyfriend at the time, we were the same major, and we would go to these career events to try to get internships, to try to get a job. And he would walk in the door in his blue suit, tall American man, Western European descent, blue eyes, like sports and craft beer. Yeah, like sports and craft beer. And everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. They just assumed that he was the person, the candidate that they were looking for. And I watched people's eyes slide over me like I was nothing, even though I had better grades, more leadership experience, more internship experience, passion, drive, ambition, a crazy work ethic, like all of these things, but I didn't fit the part. And that, I think, is what radicalized me, is going through those experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of women's journeys. And, I think that's oftentimes why some anti-feminist men go for young women, because you don't know yet. You don't hit the wall somewhere with, you don't encounter the sexism and the misogyny just yet. So it's a opportunity to take advantage of a young person who hasn't learned that yet, Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I grew up I really feel grateful that my parents are kind of progressive, but the culture obviously is very patriarchal, very patriarchal, but I feel lucky that my father was a middle son. He wasn't like he was a middle in a large brood. So he never experienced like the eldest son elevation that you get in our culture.
Okay.
And I think what helped also was that I was his firstborn. And like, I think there is just so much love for your firstborn child. And I feel like he didn't wait to put the hopes and dreams on the son he would have, like he did it with me. And he did it with all the kids. But it was, so I feel lucky in that way. Like I was a little bit sheltered in that culture by having these parents that encouraged me. But yes, again, like you, throughout my education, med school, I was thinking about being a surgeon actually, and they said such sexist remarks. Like,
I can't even imagine. Well, I can imagine, but
this one time, like one of the times that really stands out was I was on a surgery rotation, and this was still in med school. I hadn't decided to become an OBGYN, but I was scrubbed in a case, and the surgery resident said something about how men are just better with their hands. He's like suturing something, right? And I didn't say anything, but in my head I was like who has more experience sewing shit? Like, come on, like women, like what are you talking about? Women use their hands for all kinds of stuff.
It's really disappointing that a literal physician who is supposed to be dedicating his life to being evidence-based would just throw out something like that.
Yes. So, other myths about feminism, right? Like we touched upon. Okay, so you can be feminine, you can be masculine. Feminists don't hate men. We're not all lesbians, but there's nothing wrong with being lesbian, right? You could be gay and lesbian and a feminist.
Yes. I think the majority of feminists I know don't hate men at all. They love their brothers and fathers and coworkers and boyfriends and husbands and the men in their life. If anything, they hate the patriarchy and the impact that the patriarchy has on both men and women, and how men sometimes behave because of the patriarchy. Even the men that they might love, like their father, husband, or brother, they don't like some of the behaviors that they see and that were bred by the patriarchy.
Right. And I mean, I think, that kind of reminds me of something like a lot of feminists follow me. I follow a lot of feminists, and something I've heard them talk about is some feminists don't believe that you could be a man and a feminist. What are your thoughts on that? Because they don't have the experience, they think, the lived experience.
Yeah, I think it's a special cis man that is a feminist, right? They are out there, they exist.
Yes.
But if they have done the work and they have the intellect to have empathy for women and to also understand, yes, I'm a feminist, but I defer to the experiences of women, then I think that they can be a feminist, right?
I agree with you. So I disagree with some of my followers or people I follow, but I don't want that to be something we fight about. We should never. That leads me to another conversation point, which I'll bring up after this. But I agree with you. I think that maybe, you can call them advocates if you hate to call them feminists, but I feel like it's so important to be as inclusive as possible and bring as many people to feminism as possible. I don't know why everyone has a hard time with equality for women. Sometimes I wonder if it's just the term, like, does the prefix fem, is that just hard to just embrace? Like, does that send the wrong message? What do you think about that?
Yeah, people have a hard time with the term, right? You say feminist and people think women who hate men and grow out their armpit hair and are lesbians. And yeah, there are people that do those things that are feminists, but there's people that aren't. So I think the term almost needs like a refresh, or we need to reclaim it. We need to reclaim it, right? And that has happened with people have done that with other terms
Mm-hmm,
over time.
mm-hmm.
So I would love to see that
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, I was thinking about this and talking to a friend about this because me as a Gen Xer, we have a big age difference. And I like personally, I adore the word feminist. Like it is in my bones, it is in my soul. Like I just love it till the day I die. I'm going to be calling myself a feminist. But I am not so arrogant as to hold on to the word for future generations. Like you are the future and whatever you want to call this movement is what it should be called, you know? So I don't know, like if it's not inclusive to some people, then maybe the term should be changed. I don't know if there are other terms, you know, for what we're trying to do here.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I had made a video on TikTok where I called myself a radical feminist, and it received a lot of backlash because the term radfem has been co-opted, I guess, by women who are exclusive. They do not include trans women in their definition of feminism. And I had no idea that term meant that. And I thought that was kind of sad. I'm like, how come they get to claim radical feminism as their term?
I don't know. There's designations, right? I mean, there's TERFs, trans exclusive radical feminist.
Yes.
And you can also be a trans inclusive radical feminist. And I also kind of relate to a lot of the tenets of radical feminism. I think it's really important for us not to get divided on specific issues that we are individually passionate about. We should still be a cohesive, unified movement with perhaps people fighting for different rights, you know, but regardless, like I think this is actually something that right-wing people try to divide feminists on are these topics that are controversial and not solved. Like I am still evolving about my feelings. Like I am a supporter of trans people and women, trans women and men. But I also hear, you know, I hear so many things, so many conflicted arguments, and I'm still evolving. I don't know where I'll be. But right now, I don't like to exclude trans people. And I don't think I ever will exclude anybody, you know, who wants to join this movement.
Yeah. And I've had a front row seat to your kind of journey. And that was something I always really loved about you is when I first met you, you just hadn't been exposed that much to the idea of the new and modern way that trans people were talking about themselves on social media and non-binary people. And it was cool to see you be open to it and be like, oh, this is what people do and think and what makes them happy. Okay. Like, I need to incorporate that into my practice. Like, I love that.
You know, it's been so great becoming friends with you, working with you, because you're right. I mean, I've been in practice over 20 years and I was just used to calling people women, men, she, him, you know, she, he. And this is something all doctors are doing and having to evolve and grow. And if you're not evolving and growing, you should retire, you know, because you should respect people, like how they want to be viewed. And if they want to be called they or them, you should do it. You know, you need to move with the times. I actually think like I'm getting older. I'm going to die off. The world is yours. So teach me. I still want to participate. I still want to help. I want to make the world a better place with you. So yes, I'm with you.
That's because that's a very humble and well-educated approach to it, because people who are humble enough to know that, you know, my lifetime is just one point of time in society and culture, right? Society and culture change constantly. Like, who am I to say what's right and wrong for other people? But, I have to ask you though, because I don't know if you'll know about this controversy. Did you see the Days of Girlhood video that I think it's Dylan Mullaney put out?
I think she can be whoever she'd like to be, but yes, I did tweet about it because I did not like the video. I did not like the video. It was a caricature of women that I did not appreciate.
Yes, I thought she was joking but I don't think she was. And of course, like, the boomers and the Republicans will use that as a way to divide people about, trans women versus cis women.
Yeah.
And the feminist movement. But really, it's just one out of touch celebrity.
Yes. I mean, you know what?
You know what I mean? Just one.
Yes. Actually,
celebrity.
I love this point, right? Like, I love this point because we should regard people as individuals with individual opinions and thoughts. And just because you're trans and I accept trans people doesn't mean I'm going to agree with your opinions. Like Caitlyn Jenner. Wait, no, is that her name?
Yes, Caitlyn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm like
Kylie,
oh
Kendall, like Caitlyn.
Right. I know. So Caitlyn Jenner, I mean, I think I don't understand her views as a trans woman, her political views. Like
that's just
really
one crazy celebrity.
Yeah. So just because I support the trans movement, and yet I don't agree with Caitlyn Jenner. So yeah, exactly. You don't have to. I think you had touched upon like history, right? Like I think one of the big problems, like, we were talking about just boomers I don't want to become like a boomer and think everything should be static this way, how I want it. And I think this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the world works, which is that it's constantly evolving. And I think the people don't seem to know the history of feminism and how far we've come. And that really hurts us because women look around and they think, oh yeah, well, you have a job, you have a career, you're doing all these things. So why do you need feminism? Right. And I think they don't understand that we only got the right to vote in 1919. Isn't that crazy? And then I looked up when Black women got to vote and when it was 1965. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. And I mean, you can point to so many things like this. People forget that you didn't have to include women in your clinical studies until 1993, right?
So crazy.
We have come a long way. It's going to take longer to dismantle these systemic issues of an entire society built for men.
Yes. I mean, and I sometimes see these anti-feminists act like women are in charge of everything and ruining everything. I'm like, you literally made the world. Like, if you're mad at the world, you made it. Like, the patriarchy made it. Like, blame other men.
Yes.
We have only gotten some power fighting tooth and nail since like the late 1800s. Till now, for centuries, you've been in power. So crazy.
Yeah, we did not make the world, so don't be mad at us. But I think actually, here's my hot take. I think a lot of that anger and the reason that we're seeing this huge anti-feminist movement in young men, especially, I talk to my dad about this all the time because we're fascinated by it, which is that
I love it.
I think that we're actually like winning. Like we're making progress as women.
Yes.
And I think it's really scary.
Yes.
It's really scary for some men who don't know where they fit in society anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because for so long, if you were a man, you could, as long as you like had a job, you could get a wife and she would like be your domestic servant and bear your children and you could sit on the couch and like things could be good. And that's just not going to cut it anymore for a lot of women. And I think men are having sort of a reckoning of not knowing where they stand in society, and it's a little bit scary for them.
Yes, I think that it is a backlash. It's so cool, by the way, to hear that you and your dad talk. I mean, like this, about this kind of issue, feminism. I mean, I'm very close to my dad too. And honestly, I think that's a thing, right? Like,
it's a thing.
Like, feminists often have awesome daddies, right?
Yes.
So such a supporter of me, and you seem to have the same thing. And I think this is a good message also for the men who are starting families or have children. Like, and if you have a daughter, like, it's so important for you to be a feminist, you know, raise a strong daughter. Okay, so that was my aside. But I think you and your dad are absolutely correct. Like, I think all this backlash is actually a signal. It's like, it is a positive. It's like, you know, it shows that we are making progress because the pushback, the backlash is so great. They overturned Roe. It's kind of crazy. It feels very painful and staggering, but honestly, it's because we're making so much progress in society. And it's like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, but we're still ahead, you know?
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. And I do think that it's going to take participation from men to redefine what the role of a man in society is for us to move forward, right?
Yes. I mean, that is my very strong opinion is evolve or die off. Like, I'm sorry. Like, unfortunately, women are doing things and you cannot repeal our rights. You can try to, but we're just going to have marches and go fucking crazy. You know, I mean, it's going to just be hard times again. Like, you know, the first wave, and people need to learn about history. That's also, they're also so ignorant. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys out there and women even saying repeal the 19th okay amendment, the right to vote for women.
Who is like, saying that?
I mean, just crazy people on the internet.
Okay, crazy people on the internet. Okay.
Yes, of course.
We need to work on our education system as well. That's like a whole other
Yes, like
thing.
you can't get away with that. You know, they act like they can just repeal women's rights and nothing would happen. No, there were endless marches, you know, the first wave of and women and men, everybody needs to learn more history. The first wave of feminism was about getting the right to vote, labor rights. The second wave, the women's lib movement in the 60s, reproductive rights. And that's when women got bank accounts on their own.
And we should talk about birth control after this.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Divorce laws. You could finally divorce your raping and abusing husband in the 60s, I think, or 70s.
Bless crazy. Up. Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, crazy how late in history. Like, please learn history, everyone. Third wave, that was like in the 80s. And that was a backlash to all the gains that women made in the 60s and 70s. And that was like when Anita Hill, I mean, you were too young, but I lived through that. And we had to watch that disgusting testimony. Anita Hill presenting the sexist sexual harassment in the workplace by Clarence Thomas. And you don't know how much it enrages women in my generation, Gen X and above, who watch this because Clarence Thomas still on the Supreme Court and one of the worst, I mean, maybe the literal worst Supreme Court justice. Okay. And then now I think that is what you and your dad were touching upon. Like, I think we're experiencing another backlash from all our gains and advances in society.
You know, you're right. I was not alive yet, or maybe just very young for Anita Hill, although I did take a women's gender studies class, so I am familiar. But I will say at age 20, thank you. At age 21, I was working from home one day because it was a snow day in Chicago, and I watched the Dr. Christine Blasey Ford trials.
Good one. And thanks for bringing that up.
And I cried because
painful.
It was so painful. I just watched the testimony of a woman about her sexual assault be absolutely belittled and swept under the rug. And I watched this man not suffer any repercussions from it as he like stood on the stand and whined about God knows what. And I was like, where are we in society that this is happening?
Yes, and he's a Supreme Court justice as well.
And so no wonder Roe overturned. We have these monsters on the whatever.
We really do. I think, you know, yes, we have so much work to do, right? So I feel like that's that's the thing. Like when people say you don't need a feminist movement, are you kidding me? I mean, they've rolled back some rights. We need it now more than ever. I mean, besides you wanted to talk about birth control. Let's go there. Yeah, we gotta preserve our rights, reproductive rights.
I have really been so floored by the anti-birth control movement. There are valid points. You and I have talked about said valid points in the anti-birth control movement, right? It would be great if there were more options, and I think that we need to push towards more options for women.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that the Venn diagram of people who are pushing anti-birth control propaganda and people who are incels, right-wing, trying to strip women's rights, it's not two separate circles.
There's a big
There's
overlap.
a lot. There's a big
Yes.
overlap. And I really see this. I saw this hilarious tweet that was like, it was interesting watching like red pill incel bros inherit the woo-woo health industry from
Yes.
because that's who's kind of pushing these women. Birth control is poison. Like you should just be barefoot and pregnant home in the kitchen.
It's a really insidious movement. It makes it look like it's health and wellness, just looking out for your health. But, honestly, the undercurrent, the agenda, I think, is to get women barefoot and pregnant, and even teenagers. Okay, like just get everyone barefoot and pregnant and helpless, uneducated, and, making women into, basically baby machines,
Yeah.
And
it's a way to get women in a compromising position when they're still young. And
yes.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Absolutely. So I think you should view these things with suspicion. And message from a gynecologist is we have other birth control options. Don't go without birth control. And especially in these times when your abortion rights may be threatened, come and talk to your gynecologist about birth control options. We have low hormone options. We have non-hormonal options, right? So, another thing I wanted to ask you, because you're young, but like another thing that bothers me is this whole Tradwife movement, okay, with this, and it seems like it's a lot of people, no offense, your age, like a lot of millennial women. What the hell? Like it makes me just want to die inside as a Gen Xer. Like we were raised, okay, I don't know, you're probably too young, or maybe you've seen it, but we literally had ads in the 80s with like, there was a perfume ad. I forget what the perfume was. Was it Charlie? But there was a perfume where they would like advertise with a little song saying, we bring home the bacon and she can bring home the bacon and fry it in the pan. So we were raised like to do it all, which admittedly is hard and that's a topic we could go to, like hard and unrealistic. But now I feel like there's this whole unusual movement that pains me of women just deciding they want to be very traditional, which is okay. That's your choice. Okay. Thoughts. God,
I have thoughts on this. My best friend and I talk about this on the daily because we're both in finance and we're in our late 20s and we're aware of our uterus and we're aware of the Tradwife content and we're aware of men. Okay, where to even begin? So I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that as feminism has progressed in society, there are growing pains associated with women entering the workforce in a significant way. And that is the idea that there was messaging that women could have it all, that they could bring home the bacon and fry up the bacon. But there were no messages to men that were like, and you should help fry the bacon. Because if she's also bringing home the bacon, then you also need to help fry the bacon. And so we see these women who got into like a generation of women who ended up having it all and then being married to these 50-50 men. Oh, we're equal. It's 50-50. But it really wasn't. The women still ended up doing the majority of the childcare, of the emotional labor, of the domestic labor. And men were not necessarily expected to evolve to keep up with the fact that women now had big demanding careers. And so I think there's a lot of women who are disillusioned with the idea of having to work full time and take care of the house full time.
Yes, it's understandable. It's understandable burnout to try to do it all.
Because their male counterparts don't step up in the meaningful way that they would need to make that sustainable. You know, I have seen it a lot, honestly, of this kind of younger millennial generation of men who, because it's culturally popular, say, oh yeah, I love a Creole girl. I love an independent woman. I would love to be with a woman who's smart and has a career and makes money. But they have no concept of the things that they will have to sacrifice in order to be married to that woman, which is that she may not always be around to do his laundry.
Yes. I mean, this is the challenge, right? Two different generations raised by, men and women raised by women doing it all. Perhaps the young women are seeing like, I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
And I have a talk, with one of my best friends who's around my age. We talk about this. We're like, do you think this whole movement of like women not marrying and not having children is because of us? And I mean, we also say things to our kids like, baby, just be happy, do what you want in life. You don't have to get married. You don't have to have kids. I don't have any expectations on you because, all of us in this generation are burnt out from doing it all. So I don't know if it's our influence, but also just watching, their moms doing it all. And then the sons, these young men now saw fantastic like women doing too much, right? So
they're like, well, my mom did everything. Yeah. I'm like, okay, but was she happy? And what if they like?
Yeah, so they didn't really get great role models in us. I guess it's our fault as well. But
it's not anyone's fault. It's just society evolving and growing pains, right?
Yes.
I had a 50-50 dad. Like I had a dad that contributed in the home. And so I thought that was the standard. I was wrong.
Yes. And I mean, my dad also did a lot, but my mom did a lot. I sometimes say like she was kind of a bad example in that she did so much. She took on domestic roles plus the whole, most of the domestic work plus had a job. And then, I was kind of raised in that generation of doing it all as well. It's not healthy. But they're fine. They're fine. Thankfully. But yes, I think we all have to grow, men and women. And so, and I guess I have to say, I'm not judging the Tradwives. I think that the thing is, as a woman, you should do whatever you want, as long as it's your choice, as long as this was not put upon you by the church or state or the man,
I agree, right? If that's the life you want to live, I have no problem with it. And I have friends that have made that choice, and that's totally fine. And they respect my choice. But even then, and I hate when people make it so black and white. Like you're either a trad wife or you stay at home with the kids barefoot and pregnant, or you're a feminist and you're out like ball busting and you're single and you have cats. Like I intend to marry, and I intend to marry someone who can support me financially when my children are young so that I don't have to work the same hours that I work now when my children are young. Because I personally would like to be home with my young children.
Yeah. I think men and women should both spend time with their children. It shouldn't be like just put upon the woman. I mean, and I think we all yearn to do that. I mean, I think men also yearn. So patriarchy hurts men as well, right? We don't talk about that enough. Like they identify too much with the patriarchy, and I wish some would reject it and say, you know what, it's harmful for me too. I would like paternity leave. I would like to work part-time. I would like to help raise my children, I would like to do domestic things and help out my wife so she's not exhausted and she's happy.
It is hard for men to even do things like take paternity leave, right? Like oftentimes I've seen it because I work with typically all men. They're like ostracized by the other men for wanting to take off so much time to be with the children, or needing to rush home after work because they have chores to do. Other men will like put them down for that, and that sucks.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that some are trying and doing, and hopefully that culture changes.
Yes.
I guess we should be winding down, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask you about, I guess, how as a young person do you see us trying to bring more people into the fold, versus like alienating them? I don't like what people say about feminists, but I want us to have open arms for future feminists or turn people our way. Do you have thoughts on like how to bring people to the movement?
Man, it is so hard because the way our media and culture is right now, everything is so polarizing and it doesn't really lend itself to helping people to change their minds or being flexible to people being kind of in gray area, right? Not just a trad wife or a ball busting feminist, like
Yes,
somewhere
you can
being
be.
someone in between.
Yes, you can be stay-at-home wife and mother and be a feminist. Like you can be
Yes.
a feminist in any role that you decide. I know, I guess we just have to keep talking about it. I guess that's why we do podcasts like this.
We have to keep talking about it, having honest conversations between women and with the other women in our life and men in our life. And I think also education for young girls is really important because so many of these things are like learned behaviors that start when you're very young. And how can we get more feminism into early education for both boys and girls?
Right. I think so. I think breaking stereotypes is good. I mean, like uh, what is a feminist? We should have more diverse representation, of that.
Yes, that's so true.
Any other thoughts you'd like to share that I didn't ask or touch upon?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like we covered a ton of stuff. I'm curious what submissions you got from your audience about like myths about feminism because I remember when you posted that and I was curious what came back.
All right. So I did get a bunch of questions. We may have already touched upon these topics. Laurentine Lamoureux said, I've heard a lot of misconceptions about feminism, but I think the biggest and somewhat obvious one is that the bros think we all hate men. Okay, we did cover that one. Mm-hmm. Then she goes on to say, she also seems to mention something about misconception about the subject of circumcision. Bros seem to think that it's awful or as worse as FGM. Okay, regarding that, I think I defer to urologists because, I have not really, I take care of only women, so I haven't really thought about circumcision in depth, but I could see how they may have a problem with that. A baby does not consent. And then she goes on to say, I'm a young woman and I often get mistreated and ogled by men old enough to be my father or grandfather, or even just boys my age. I really don't know how to stand up for myself. So I guess she's trying to ask how to stand up for myself effectively against men like that. Do you have any tips?
So, from my experience, when you're standing up to men like that, different women feel empowered by a different approach, right? So I know women who ignoring it and just completely walking away from it is what makes them feel empowered. I'm above this. Fuck this. I don't engage with this at all. This is below me. And I also know women like me who like to say something.
Oh, because I'm like in person, I'm a block away because they usually like I don't want to get in deal,
Right. Yeah. Sometimes for your safety, you have to walk away, right?
Right.
For your literal physical safety, you have to walk away.
But what do you do?
Well, it depends on the comment, but I love to say little quippy things like, how would you like it if someone said that to your daughter?
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, it
I
really
like that. Or your mother or your
your
sister.
mother. Yeah. And, or one thing that's so easy that just puts them back on their heels is a lot of times they call you something like baby, sweetheart, honey, whatever. It's almost a reflex for them. They don't even think about it. And I just always say, I'm not your honey. Like, I'm not your baby. And it just reminds them that, like, I can't just say whatever the fuck I want to.
Right. Watch yourself.
Yeah.
It's so disrespectful. Okay, so let's see. Here's another one. Juan Ogas said, there's a misconception that feminism is anti-male. Okay, we did cover that. It is not anti-male. Somebody with the fake name, Hippolytus Twitter, said, the most ridiculous accusation I've heard about feminism is that women would treat men the same way men treated women in the event of some matriarchy. I would love to know your ideas about a female-led government that would be beneficial for humanity as a whole. That's a nice one. I really like thinking about that. What do you think? What would a matriarchy look like?
It's just ridiculous to think that a matriarchy would operate that way, right? Just because
we're just different.
We're just of what we know about how women act in positions of power for the most part, right?
Right. Research has been done.
Ultimately, I think matriarchy, patriarchy, neither of them is the right solution for society, right? We need men and women working together and as close to equals as we can be. But the idea that women would subjugate men the way that they have subjugated us
is so comical.
Absolutely unfounded.
Yes. Okay. So I like to take a toxic feminist trait. I like take, and I always push for full-on matriarchy and women being in power of everything. And the reason I do that is not because I disagree with what you have to say about, ideally it's men and women working collaboratively, but quite frankly, I think that in order to get to 50%, you honestly have to ask for everything. Like, come on, asking for 50%, you're not going to get 50%. You're not going to get 50%
yes, for 50, you're going to get 5. Yeah.
Yes, you're not going to get 50% of the seats in the legislature, but you're not going to get 50% CEOs. Like, you have to ask for everything. And it's, it's centuries men have been in charge. Let women be in charge. Like, try it a few years. I don't know, another century.
A couple generations.
Yes. And
let's see what we get.
And I agree, like women, just from studies are more collaborative, community oriented, caring about others. I just don't think I think there would be a little bit more concern about social and economic equality for everyone, concern for men as well. I think it would be a beautiful world.
Right? Like, we all saw the study where they put a bunch of young boys in a house with no guidance and a bunch of young girls in a house with no guidance. And the boys all like Lord of the Flies on each other, right? And the girls were like, it's only equal if we all have chores and we need to work together. And if these two aren't getting along, then someone needs to mediate. Like,
I need to look that up.
Oh my gosh. Great. Yes, you do. There's video from the study.
That's funny. Video? Oh my God.
There's video because they had like cameras inside the house.
How far
to monitor what was going on.
Like, how far did they let this go to Lord of the Flies?
It was only a week or something like that. But it was Lord of the Boys. There were factions. It was a mess. Like, I can't.
That's pretty funny. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what else I have. Okay, Daniela Gonzalez says, another ridiculous misconception is that feminism stands against the family, wants to destroy the nuclear family. So I love that. We did touch upon it, but I think it's important to bring that up because that, I think that is a misconception and a bad one that makes us look bad.
Yeah. Women are the pillars of family.
Yes, of course.
First
Thank
of
you.
all,
That's such a beautiful, simple answer. You're right.
yeah,
It's true. It's kind of, I mean, yes, I mean, all the arguments against feminists are a bit comical, right? Because it's just
right.
not the truth. Women are always looking out for the family, children, and I know that the men will sometimes say, like, oh, well, women file for more divorces. I mean, can we really see the full picture here? How much abuse was there, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
don't.
Who was disrespecting the family unit
Yeah,
first that led to the divorce,
exactly.
right?
We're gonna need all the details. We're gonna need all the deets. Like, you can't just say that and think you're right.
Mhm. Yeah, and also I don't subscribe to the very Western idea that a nuclear family is mom, dad, children.
That is an interesting point. How do you
You
think it
know,
will evolve?
I think about myself right now, right? And the role that I hope my sister and my brother and my parents and my close friends will play in being family to me. And
Mm.
how if something were to happen with a future husband, like that doesn't mean that my child wouldn't have any family. That's ridiculous.
I do think we've moved away in society to this nuclear family concept
Mhm.
when we really should have,
In
like,
Western society. By the way,
oh,
in Hawaii, nobody's doing
thank
it like
you.
this.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for pointing
Yeah.
that out. That's true.
Yes.
Incorrect. Western society. And it does leave us isolated and alone
Mhm.
when we don't have the partners and no support, no grandparents, and grandparents are so important, and all these family connections, aunts and uncles. I think that we should move to more of a community oriented. It takes a village, like
It
Hillary
takes a
Clinton says.
village.
Yes. So, well, Malia, I think we've gone way over.
Oh well, we'll have to cut out lots because we were acting crazy.
I mean, my God, the champagne exploding in the beginning, like, oh my goodness. I mean, it's kind of good. I'm trying to, I'm trying to not drink so much. I don't drink too much, but studies have come out saying the less alcohol you have, the better.
The better.
But
Yeah.
today was a special occasion.
Today was a special occasion. Everything in moderation, including moderation.
Good one. So I'd like to leave us with a final thought, and that is that the patriarchy would like us to believe that feminism and feminists are the enemy to men, women, society, but that is not the truth. We know in the Gynarchy that feminism is the path to equality, to really solving a lot of these societal problems we have. So down with the patriarchy and up with the Gynarchy.
With the Gynarchy.
Cheers.
I love that. Cheers.
Oh, please share with my audience
Yes.
where they can find you, because I'm sure they will want to follow you on your socials.
Oh, yes. So I do mostly TikTok in terms of speaking about similar topics that we talked about today, as well as going more in depth on both women's health and wealth and finance for women. So I'm at
So
POV.
important.
Yes, so important, right? I'm
Yes.
at POV by Malia. It's the same on Instagram as well, but I try to keep it like a little more calm on Instagram. That's just the vibe, I feel like.
Same. I'm the most toxic on Twitter, honestly.
Right. Yeah. And what's Twitter? I've never heard of it. It's X. So
Oh, I just call it Twitter. It's forever Twitter. I'm sorry.
I call it Twitter too. Elon Musk can deal with it.
Yeah, suck it.
Suck it.
Okay.
Amazing. Yes.
Thank you so much. Maybe we'll do a finance and women in finance podcast. I don't know. I'm gonna have to, maybe for season 2, have to think about this.
I always say that I like to talk about 2 things that women are not supposed to talk about, which is sex and money.
Oh my God, same favorite topic.
Favorite topic. So maybe we could do one where we talk about money.
I do like to talk about money with women. You know, it sometimes comes up in the office, believe it or not, because I tell women start stashing some cash if they, tell me about some problems at home,
Yep.
It's important.
You gotta have your cash.
Thank you so much, Malia.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Okay, have a great night.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Gynarchy Podcast? Know someone else that might enjoy this conversation? Make sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and family. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and just about anywhere you find podcasts. On social media, we can be found on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at The Gynarchy. Thank you so much for listening.